Can you really be self-sufficient with neighbors on all sides? Many people think that you need 20 acres of land in order to be self-sufficient and to homestead, but modern pioneers find that you can make this work no matter how much space you have. It's not about being completely self-sufficient. It's about making sure that I have some of the things that I need for my family in order to help them grow and to augment what we can get at the store right now because there is limited space and limited light available. You can find spots in your patio, in your driveway, your front yard, as long as your HOA doesn't have anything to say about that. Yeah, HOAs have a big problem with front yard gardening. They think that everybody should have perfectly green manicured grass and every bush should be exactly perfect as if it was taken to a hairstylist every weekend. I'm so grateful that the place that I live does not have an HOA because my garden is my front yard.
I think the things that I would love to grow if I had more space would be things like pumpkins and winter squash. I tried doing that this year and got very little success out of it. There's not a whole lot of sun in my yard is the problem. And we I planted them in a semi-sunny spot. It wasn't completely sunny. It probably gets 6 hours a day, uh, which should be enough, but I only was able to grow a total of three winter squash and this nasty blue jay. He got his little claws into two of them, and that's just it. He probably would have gone for the third one too, but that one's hidden underneath some branches, so he probably can't see it as easily. I have since added a decoy owl to my gardening system in hopes that it'll help with kind of dealing with that. I also think that I would grow corn if I had enough space to grow corn, just because you need a lot of it and it needs to be pretty evenly grouped together in order to get maximum fertilization of each of the kernels. They basically, when the wind blows and the tassels catch the pollen from the plant itself, they're benefited by being nearby with other corn stalks, and that's how you're going to get a really good ear of corn. And I just don't have the space for that much corn. I can't justify it, especially for the amount that it costs to water it. I also don't have enough space for things like dried beans that I would want to do, like pinto beans. There's not enough room to get a good enough harvest of pinto beans to make it through the year. So that's one of the things that, as of right now, I'm still going to buy just because it's cheaper to buy them in bulk than it is to buy them and then plant seeds, pay for the water cost of everything, and maintain all of these plants in order to get the maximum amount of beans that I need every year. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, garbanzo beans. I love all of those types of beans. And in order to grow enough for me and my family every year, we would have to have a lot more space for that. So it really is prudent that we just buy those things in the grocery store right now. Well, the cost is just too good. I mean, 23 bucks for 25 pounds of pinto beans when you go into one of those stores like Winco or Cost Plus or whatever, you can buy a big bag of beans and really make that work for your year. 25 pounds isn't a lot, granted, especially when you have a larger family. My family is relatively small at this point, so it's not really going to be a huge increase in the amount of beans that we would need to have every year in order to just bulk up our meals. My wife loves Mexican food. It's one of her favorite things in the world. And so, we would need a lot of beans in order to account for her Mexican food love. And and so we're just going to continue buying those at the grocery store. It like I said, just makes too much sense not to. Another thing I would like to do, but I would like to have an in-ground garden, but because I'm renting, I don't want to destroy the homeowner's property. And that's something that's really important to me, that we don't just take care of our own land, but we respect the rights of other homeowners and other property owners. Throwing your garbage out the side of the window might not seem like it's such a big deal as you're racing down the freeway, but you got to think about how many other people are doing the exact same thing that you're doing when you throw garbage out the window. It really just destroys that homeowner's property value because you're making it look really bad. And so we should really respect everybody else's right to own land and to be able to keep things the way that they want to keep it. So that being said, I would love to be able to have an in-ground garden. I would love to be able to grow my potatoes in ground because I mean, I think we all watch Epic Gardening at this point. I love that channel, and they did a test where they were talking about how each of these different methods work in comparison with the other methods. And it seems that in-ground gardening, in-ground planting for potatoes at the very least, is the best idea. The other things that I would like to have are some of the more perennial crops. I think that having something like rhubarb growing would be amazing, or asparagus, because I love asparagus. I think it's delicious, and you can get asparagus forever with just one plant. Well, maybe not forever, for several years though, with just one plant. And because I don't own the land, I don't want to plant this. I don't want to put this plant into the ground that could be considered invasive by the homeowner. It just doesn't feel right to me. So I'm debating getting some really big pots for next year and trying to grow those perennial crops in big pots, just so that way I can get them going. And then once my wife and I have our house, we want to buy a home for ourselves and our child and our animals, and be able to have room for everybody to coexist. The dog and the cat don't get along, but we need to make sure that they have room to exist happily within the same house. But I also want to make sure that we have some land that my son can play on, and that I can grow my crops on, and that my dog has a place to run around and run loose and just have a blast, because that dog loves to play catch. He doesn't like to return the ball, but he loves to play catch, which, it's something that is so much fun for him. And then keeping the ball away from me for a few minutes is a blast for him as well. So that's pretty great. But they say that container gardening right now is one of the most growing. That's probably not the right way to put it, but it's one of the biggest growth areas of home gardening right now. People are realizing that they can grow on their patio. They can put some herbs into a pot and grow it on their balcony or on the windowsill in their house if they have a southern facing window. People are learning that they have a lot of options, and so this container gardening movement really is pretty fantastic, because it doesn't matter what quality soil you have in your yard, because you're going to get the best quality compost that you can make. You're going to get some of the soil from the topsoil if you have topsoil. If you don't, you can always buy some, or you can build it up yourself. You don't have to use topsoil in order to build good container soil. You can buy potting soil at the very least. There's a lot of wood in that potting soil though, which is great because it'll break down over years and that'll add some stuff to it. It'll add carbon to your soil, but it's not going to be balancing out over the years with the nitrogen and the carbon. So I'm undecided as to whether I like using potting soil or if I would rather just build up my own at this point. I think that building my own is the best long term, especially because I do have three big buckets, 27-gallon buckets that I've got filled with compost that is sitting out on the ground in my yard, close to like touching the dirt. So worms have grown up inside of the compost bins, and I'm getting a lot of worm castings in there. They're eating all the food that I put in there. They're taking all the leaves that I've been mulching. I got this really cool mulcher from Ryobi. I know that people kind of think Ryobi's garbage. I don't. I love Ryobi. Judge me. I'm not a construction worker, but I like my Ryobi tools, and I bought a Ryobi leaf mulcher recently. It operates off of the same, I think it's a 17-volt battery as my leaf blower. So I just blow out the leaves in the yard, get them all piled up into one spot, and then use that mulcher and just suck them up. Apparently, or allegedly, it's supposed to be able to take 16 bags of leaves and reduce them down in size so that way you can fit them into one. So 16 to 1 capacity. I think that that's worth. at least looking into and trying out for the year. I tried it out. It works great. It's got great suction. Don't do it if you have any apples in your yard that may have fallen from a tree, because those will probably get sucked up into it. And on the first time I used it, I didn't notice the apple that got sucked into it and thought that my engine had died on it until I took it apart before putting it into because I was going to put it into the box so that way I could return it to Home Depot, because I thought, Ryobi, man, Ryobi. And took it apart and found that there was an apple that got sucked into it. And that was just, I mean, I felt really stupid. I felt really dumb. But I got that fixed and I went back to doing it, and it took a lot of leaves, like a lot. The downside is that I'm probably going to need to buy a second battery in order to make the blower mulcher combo kind of work more efficiently, just because I don't want to have to wait for my battery to charge again, which, I mean, that's an expense, but whatever. Once you own it and you've used it once for the tool that you want to use it for, I've heard that it becomes like exponential growth on your investment, right? I mean, that makes sense. Also, don't take investment advice from me, because this is bad advice. Yeah, another thing that I was thinking about today is that I've seen that 80% of the population of the United States live in an urban or suburban environment. And I mean, that's a lot of people that aren't thinking about how they could offset the price of their food bill every year. I mean, the average American spends 12% of their income on food. Imagine if you could just cut that by 1%. I mean, if you make $100,000, which that's a lot of money, but if you make $100,000 and you're spending $12,000 a year on food, if you could save 1%, that's $1,000 that you can be putting into a savings account if that's what you want to do with it, or spending it on something stupid if that's what you want to do with it. But you could be taking that money and hoarding it, putting it under your mattress, whatever it is. I'm not an investment advisor, so don't take financial advice from me, because I don't know what I'm talking about for the most part. I got my education in the American public school system. But the point is that if you were able to reduce your overall expense every year by even 1% or 1/12 of the cost of food every year, by growing your own, having your own herbs in your garden. I mean, just herbs alone. You go to the grocery store, they're $5. It's not even that big. It's really tiny. The little bundles of herbs, you could fit a bundle of chives between my fingers. I can't even see my eye. Oh, there's my eye. But you get what I mean. So growing your own herbs, at the very least, is something you can do in your windowsill, and you should be doing it, because the markup on herbs is absolutely ridiculous. It's stupid. Don't pay the amount that they want you to pay for a bundle of chives or a tiny little grip of thyme. Thyme is a perennial crop in most regions of the country. You can grow it outdoors almost year round. If you live in a hot environment, you might have to grow it inside. If you live in a colder environment, you also might have to grow it inside. But overall, you can grow your own, and it's great. I love growing garlic in containers. I did that last year. I was able to get 8 cloves of garlic in one small recycling bin. It already had the holes drilled on the bottom, because they needed to make sure that there was drainage in case it rains when we're putting our recycle out for the week. But ultimately, I was able to grow 8 heads of garlic in that small little space. I probably could have gone tighter. In fact, I might try to go tighter this year. I ultimately, this year, my goal is to have 100% of my garlic needs taken care of by June. So once I've grown my garlic through June, early July, I'll be able to pull that out of the ground, and then the rest of the year and into next year. So we're talking 2027. I'll have enough garlic in order to feed my family every day. That's my goal. So you can squeeze that into a tiny space. In fact, you could probably pull that off with an old swimming pool, like a kid's swimming pool, the blue plastic ones. You could probably get one of those, fill it with dirt, or, obviously soil of some kind, something with some nutrients in it, because it's not going to grow without any nutrients, but it will grow. You want to make sure that it's nutrient rich, so that way it can get big, big bulbs. Everybody can grow garlic in their yard if they have a 2x3 space. So garlic is easy to grow. You buy one bulb or one head of garlic, and you have five heads or five bulbs of garlic that you can pop into the ground and get five full heads of garlic out next year. Like, we're going into that time of year when we should be putting our garlic in the ground. So look up for your region, find out, Google your area, find out what your growing region is, and then find out when your first expected freeze of the year is, and make sure that you get them in there just before that. So that way they can get into the ground and be able to start producing. Because the cold really does help with the production of those cloves of garlic. This doesn't work everywhere. My mom had a hard time with it. She lives up in a colder environment, and so she tried growing garlic last year, and it was a complete and total failure. And that happens. Garlic is so easy to grow, and we can easily produce our own garlic. Onions are also fairly easy to grow. I grew some this year. However, I'm still on the learning curve uh, as far as producing the biggest bulbs of garlic, because these guys were like that big, like maybe the size of some of them were the size of a golf ball, and some of them were the size of a tennis ball at most. I'm wanting to grow some of them walla wallas that are like as big as your head. I want that. But we can definitely grow our own herbs, and at the very least some garlic for our families in a small space. So keep that in mind, because I mean, just because you're living in the city doesn't mean that you can't grow your own food, your own herbs at least, because like I said, totally overpriced. What is the most self-sufficient thing that you do in your home? For me, I think that the most self-sufficient thing I've been doing is my own composting, because it allows me to create the growth medium for next year's crops, and because I want to make sure that my family is eating the healthiest food possible. I feel that growing my own food is the best option, followed by going to farmers markets and finding reputable dealers at the farmers market. That being said, I'm sure I'm going to have some more thoughts today, and we will find out.
Some people ask me how I measure enough, and I think that the best way that I can come up with to explain what enough is to me is providing my family with the required nutrients for their day. I know that I'm not growing as much as I need to in order to replace the grocery store completely yet, but that is the goal ultimately, is to never have to rely on what's in season and what's available at the grocery store. Just because there have been so many problems with product availability over the last few years, I have witnessed stores being sold out of toilet paper 5 years ago. I mean, I think we all saw that, but at the time I was doing it, and they would actually offer to substitute nuts with toilet paper, as if to say, are you nuts? You think you can get TP right now? And I always thought that was kind of funny, but I think for me to be able to continuously put away a little bit more than what we eat and be able to provide the nutrient levels for my son at the very least, I think that's what is required. So as my son grows, his nutrient levels will be different. His caloric requirements will be different. We want to make sure that we're balancing the veggies with other fruits, so that way we're getting the maximum amount of not only calories, but also the vitamins and minerals that are available in these delicious vegetables. And if I'm growing them with my hands, I feel like I'm not being taken advantage of by a grocery store that has 1,000 branches across the country, that when they close 20 branches or 100 branches, nobody even blinks. I mean, granted, the people in the neighborhoods where these stores existed previously, they're having a hard time. I know that, especially around here, we've seen a number of burger stores closing over the last year, and that's been difficult for the people in those areas. However, overall, I don't think we even noticed a hit. I mean, I don't have any statistics to back that up, but it just kind of feels like they remained a multi-billion-dollar organization, and they closed a bunch of branches. End of story. I mean, I guess. Uh, but you've also seen
food deserts is what they're calling them, where there are no grocery stores for miles and miles, further than the average person could reasonably be asked to walk to go to a grocery store. So I feel like as long as I'm able to continuously put away a little bit more every harvest and just pack away a few extra cans of carrots or a few pounds of potatoes into the root cellar, which by the way, I don't actually have a cellar, so it's like it's not actually a root cellar, it's a metal bucket that I keep all of my potatoes in. Um, and I think that as long as I'm able to continuously put them away a little bit more every day, that means that I will be doing my best to provide for them as far as their nutrient intake is concerned. Obviously, there's a number of other things that they need in their lives: love, shelter, clothing, things of that nature that I can't grow. But for those things, we all work. We all have jobs. Everybody's got to make a living somehow.